Now that we've talked about the three different methods of solving systems of equations, graphing, substitution, and elimination, we're going to spend some time looking at the different types of applications that go with each of these. So in the first part of your notes, it lists a steps to solve list for you. And the first thing that you want to do is define the variables. So you want to read the problem and pick out the important information. What are you looking for to solve? The second step is for you to write those two equations. Once you've written them, some of them will be easiest to solve by graphing, solve by elimination, or substitution. So you can choose either which one fits the problem best or which one you think you're most comfortable using. And then the last step is for you to explain your answer and check it to make sure the answer makes sense. That checking part is really important with the applications because we want to make sure that it applies to whatever real-world situation that we have put into this question. So let's look at a couple of examples here. For this first one, you have Bob purchases 100 pens and 200 pencils for $125. Grant purchases 500 pens and 200 pencils for $425. How much does each pen and pencil cost? So if we're looking at this, we're going to set up pens and pencils as our two different variables. So let's use X for pens and Y for pencils. You can use whatever variables that you would like. Okay, so if I'm setting up an equation for Bob, then I'm going to have 100 pens. So that means 100 times X and 200 pencils. So 200 times Y is equal to a total spent of $125. Then for the next one, we have Grant. So he spent money for 500 pens, so 500X, and 200 pencils, so 200Y, which is equal to $425. So looking at each of these methods that we now know how to use, elimination is probably going to be our easiest one since they both bought 200 pencils. So if I take this and subtract out everything in the second equation to eliminate the y's, I'm left with 100 minus 500, which is negative 400x. My y's go away, and then 125 minus 425 is going to give me a negative 300. From there, I divide by my negative 400, so I get x is equal to 3/4. We're talking about money, because the cost of a pen and a pencil, so if we write that in decimal form, it's going to be 0.75, or 75 cents. I'm going to take that and plug it back into an equation to figure out what the value is for pens. So I have 100 times 0.75 plus 200y, and that's going to be equal to 125. Okay? So here, when we solve that, we get y is equal to 0.25. So now that we have both of those answers, you want to set up just a final concluding statement saying that the cost of each pen is 75 cents and the cost for each pencil is 25 cents. And you'll want to make sure that you write these out specifically on your quiz and test. One of the parts of answering the question is to tell in a complete sentence what your final answer is. So you'll want to make sure that you're writing each of those so that you don't lose points there. For this next example, we have the question that says the sum of two numbers is 13 and their difference is negative 3. We're asked to find the two numbers. So again, we're going to define two variables, x for one of the numbers and y for the other number. The sum of two numbers is going to be 13, so x plus y is equal to 13. then the difference between them is negative 3. So we have x minus y is equal to negative 3. Again, it's probably easiest here if we use elimination. The y's are opposite signs, so we can get rid of those, or you can choose to eliminate the x's. So here we have x plus x, which is 2x. The y's go away, and then we have 13 minus 3, which is going to give us 10. Divide by 2 to solve, so x is equal to 5. Plug that back into one of your equations. So if we use the first one, we have 5 plus y is equal to 13, which means that y is equal to 8. So writing our final answer here, we have 5, 8. And these, if you write your last sentence conclusion, you can just say one of the numbers is 5, the other is 8. It doesn't have to be really specific. For this example, we have a piggy bank that has 16 coins of quarters and nickels. The value of the bank is $2.20. So we want to know how many of each coin is in the bank. First off, we want to set up our variables and define them. So if we use x for quarters, that would mean y has to be nickels. So our first equation, there's a total of 16 coins. So x plus y is going to be equal to 16. When you set up the second one, you want to put the values in there. So a quarter is 25 cents. We have 0.25x. A nickel is 5 cents, so 0.05y is equal to 2.20 for $2.20. And you want to make sure that when you're putting these in, you use the decimal form of that. It's really easy to say 25 and 5 for quarters and nickels, but make sure you're putting them in decimal form. So now, this one's probably easiest if we solve this first one for x or for y, and then we substitute into the other equation. If we solve this first equation for y right here, we have y is equal to a negative x plus 16. So I'm going to plug that into this second equation. So I have 0.25x plus 0.05 times, and we'll plug in this blue part right here, negative x plus 16. Then it's going to be equal to 2.2. When you go to solve, we have 0.25x minus 0.05x, and then plus 0.8 is equal to 2.2. Combine your like terms, so you have 0.20x plus 0.8 equals 2.20. Subtract your 0.8, so we have 0.20x is equal to now 1.4, or $1.40, and then divide by 0.2 to get our x value. So x is going to be equal to 7, which means that we have 7 quarters. If we plug that back into our first equation, you can use the x plus y equals 16 or the y equals negative x plus 16, either way. But we've got 7 plus y is equal to 16, so then y is going to be equal to 9, which means that we have 9 nickels. So again, make sure with your final answers that you define each of those things. There are 7 quarters in the piggy bank and 9 nickels in the piggy bank.